Hello, my name is Sarah James and welcome to the Digital Craft Festival. In today's show and tell, I'm talking to 6 jewellers about the art of standing out. Welcome to Rebecca Burt, Angelina Mouyiaris, Melanie Hamlet, Sally Holyoak, Kate Phipps and Katherine Charnock. Welcome everybody, hello.
Hello.
Hi.
I'm going to go straight to Rebecca Burt to say hello. How are you doing, Rebecca?
Hi, yeah, I'm doing okay, thank you. How are you?
I'm good. I'm just wondering when we first met, and I think, if you can correct me, it was at the startup section at Cardiff, when we did MyBearHands Cardiff, is that right?
I think it was Cheltenham, actually. Yeah, it was Cheltenham was the first one I did in the startup section.
Oh, right in there. And then you came to Cardiff then, didn't you, I think? You definitely were at Cardiff. With you being in Cardiff?
Yeah, I did Cheltenham. I think I did a year of it. So I did Cheltenham in the startup, and then I did Bobby in the startup, and then Cardiff in the startup. So it was, yeah, I did all of them that year, which was great.
Yeah, no, it's quite a good. We started the startup section. We used to call it 1 year on, which is the same name as when there's that new designers. And then a few years into it, we decided that 1 year wasn't really enough for us. So we changed it to name to startup and then give it to 2 years. So if you're in the first 2 years of your business, we found that the amount of applications just rose quite significantly, really, because it gives people a bit more of a chance. But I was quite interested to see that actually you started out in textiles, so what happened?
Yeah, so I did a degree in textiles in Manchester. And I think during my degree, actually, I was trying to kind of make textile jewellery, and it just wasn't working for me personally. So after I graduated, I came back to Cardiff and enrolled on an evening class in jewellery making, and just loved it straight away. It just, looking at all the techniques and the processes, like it just fitted really well.
But you actually had a residency up at Bishopsland, didn't you? So how did that come about?
Yeah, so I think I was really lucky actually, because I did the evening class for a year and then just kind of self-taught for a year, and then managed to get a place at Bishopsland. So Bishopsland is a postgraduate residential course outside of Reading. So it's kind of like intensive, we do masterclasses and lots of time in the workshop and competitions and things. So it was really good, really useful for me, and I think really helped me get to where I am now.
Because I was about to say, how did that time sort of influence your work? Was your work very different before you started the residency to what it is now?
Yeah, I think so. I just didn't really know much before I did it. I think it was great because you had to have a degree to go there, but quite a few people do have degrees in jewellery making. So I didn't really know much compared to everybody else. So it just had a year to really develop my work. And then as soon as I finished that, then that's when I started my business. Yes. So yeah, came on a lot while I was there.
Because the work's very finely soldered together, isn't it? So there's quite lots of intricate pieces. So is that something that was always you're interested in?
I think so. I really like sort of building things. And I think actually that kind of comes back to the textiles. That when I was doing my textiles degree, I really loved all like the heavy embroideries and all the sort of the embellishments. And that's kind of just adding pieces. So I think I've kind of taken that and done that in my jewellery making. And I don't think I noticed that at first. It wasn't until kind of recently that I've really started to realise how much the textiles does influence my jewellery. Yeah, so the bit with all the little pieces, that's my Eden collection. So I did start that at Bishopsland and then just really kind of took it forward once I finished that. And kind of started adding little stones and all things.
Because there's usually sort of diamonds and lovely gems in certain areas, isn't there?
Yeah, so the pieces I really like from the Eden collection are actually my Eden rings. And so they're kind of lots of these little kind of leaf-like shapes. And then I now use sort of marquise-shaped stones, which kind of mirror the shape of them and have them kind of scattered and running through. So it's kind of, they've kind of got movement to them as well, and it's like they're kind of growing, which is what I really like and what I'm really interested in my influences.
Lovely. Well, I'm going to move on to Angelina Mouyiaris now. Hi, Angelina.
Hi.
Hi. Your business is actually called Angelina Jane, so for everyone else to know. So how obviously we hadn't met. We were going to meet, I think, wasn't it? Well, you were in Hot House, weren't you? You were in the Hot House with Bobby Tracy. Was that last year?
I did actually this similar setup to Rebecca. So I started, I believe, is it Cheltenham, Bovey, Cardiff. So I did the whole round, and I was due to obviously do, I think it was Bath. No.
Well, we haven't. Yeah, you're down to do, I think, either Cheltenham or Bovey, I think, for this year. I'm not.
Yeah, I think both of them.
I think I'm having quite a considerable amount of senior moments, to honestly, trying to remember.
It's okay. I think, yeah, we were supposed to do them all this year. So
you're all beautiful individual to me, but sometimes my brain can't cope with the amount of information I've got to try and retain. So, but you were on the Hot House program, though, were you?
Yes. So last year, for 6 months, which is an incredible program, with some amazing artists and designers. So I came in on the Hot House section of that, with a number of them, and yeah, it's an incredible opportunity. And anybody that is kind of starting anew. So this is kind of like a second career for me, because I was a lecturer for a good 12 years before I came back into this. So yeah, I felt like I needed some more business knowledge to do that. And, yeah.
So that program, is that more geared towards, because I've done some teaching on that. I've talked about marketing and things. So is most of it about your business development rather than creative, or is there an element of creative development as well?
The majority of it is all business, so kind of financial and marketing, and because us artists not necessarily talk or like to talk about their work, so it's about kind of confidence building. And but there is a section where that you get a mentor that works with you on a specific point. So if it's design ideas that maybe potentially you struggle with, then you would have a mentor there. For me, it was about, I always have a tricky problem with writing about my work. So I had somebody work with me about how to articulate that and basically the concepts behind my work really well. So yeah, it's very much tailor-made in the end.
I think that can be really difficult, isn't it? Because you need to have to be able to sort of articulate work, especially when you're trying to sell it online, because you need to be able to have a very succinct description, isn't it, really, on your website? It mustn't be, you want it to be descriptive, but not too wordy. It's a bit of a fine line, isn't there, really?
Definitely.
But you've got a very particular style. So you've got a very particular style in your work. I just wondered how you developed that.
Well, actually, it leads on quite nicely to that, because initially I struggle with the written word, so I'm dyslexic. And one of the things I found as I was producing my work is looking at different ways in which to describe a sense of place. So music, sound, colour. So initially it all kind of came together with illustrations about how to describe a sense of place. So once they had been done, I extracted the colours and the shapes from those and wanted to reform them or reconfigure them back into landscapes or architectural forms. I came across a bit of a problem, was like, how do you get them to fit all back together once you've taken them apart? And I started problem solving around using magnets within the work. So creating a silver frame. So you probably can't see that, but like,
you can see that actually.
A silver frame, and insetting those magnets into it, so that they could be reconfigurable and interchangeable. So that was the initial idea. So each part of my work can either reverse or flip, or can be change its shape in some way.
So is it embedded in some sort of resin then? Is it how is it? Or
yeah, it's a type of resin clay. So initially I did just flat resin, but then realized that I wanted to use the architectural shapes of my illustrations. So now I hand carve the surfaces, so they're all faceted. So it kind of adds to that kind of intrigue, so they're not just all flat. But yeah.
Brilliant. Okay, well, thanks. I'm going to move on to Melanie Hamlet now, and she's actually known as Kokkino, and we've known each other a long time, I think, haven't we, Mel?
Yeah, a long time. I don't think I was at the first Bobby, but I was at the second one.
Oh my goodness. Well, you do know that's 16 years ago now, do you?
Is it? No.
Yeah, well, I tend to go on how old my son is, and Louis is 17. I can't believe it, in November. So it would have been the 17th. It would have been the 17th Bobby this year, and he's about 6'1" now. He's ginormous. You know, he was literally 6 months old when we did the first one. It was I was a little bit tired that year, I must admit. So your signature range that I know you from the beginning really was the enamel and precious metal with the cups, isn't it? So how did that range develop?
I was just looking at a way. I really wanted to work with colour and work with the enamel, and I loved the way that it was transparent and really vivid colours. So I just chose to work with a circle, you know, as a pure and simple form to let the colour kind of shine through and kind of speak for itself. And then just using that circle in kind of all sorts of different ways. So now they kind of change and mix and match, all sorts of different forms have kind of developed over time.
Because I know you've got different ranges, but I just wanted to see why you think wearing handmade jewellery is so special.
Well, everything's kind of unique, isn't it? It's all handmade by the makers. So much goes into it, and so it's not just one piece of jewellery, it's a whole story of somebody's work and how it's kind of developed over time. So I think it means a lot to both the person who buys it and the maker themselves. So yeah.
Well, I think when people come to the festivals that we run, particularly when we've asked customers about why they, you know, what drives them to come to the event, you know, bearing in mind we do so many different things there, but it's really to meet the makers. You know, that is why they come. You know, we've got all these singing and dancing activities, but it's really about making that connection. And that's, you know, I'm sure you find that with your customers, that they like to build a relationship with you.
Yeah, definitely. And you get to know them over the years, and coming to Bobby, you kind of see the same faces, you get to know them, you know, I speak to them on social media now and get to know them, make special commissions for people. So yeah, it's definitely an ongoing relationship. Definitely.
Yeah. So where do you find your inspiration?
All sorts, really. I started off wanting to be a textile designer when I first started. So hence the kind of colour interest, really. But yeah, just all sorts, like repetitive patterns in scales and in a flower or in all sorts of places where you can find.
When you work to commission, I'm sure a lot of jewellers work to commission. Is that something that you do quite often? Is that something you're very open to?
Yeah, and I found more during the lockdown period. It's kind of happened more and more, just kind of speaking to people because they're not going out to the shops, but they still perhaps want to treat somebody, you know, send a special piece to a family member or something. So we've kind of worked via email and Zoom to create kind of one-off pieces, and I've used it to work with different you know, more gemstones and introducing different materials into my work as well. So it's been really interesting.
So you've actually set up contact with people and then had a consultation on Zoom?
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah, just sending little videos as well of things as it's kind of progressing, and
it's a great system. Yeah, so never knew existed really until this all started.
No, I never used it before.
No. Well, I want to move on to Sally now. Hi, Sally.
Hi there. Thanks so much.
Sally at Holyoak. Holyoak.
Yeah.
Holyoak. I do apologise. MyBearHands is actually who you're known as, and you're based in Bristol.
Yeah, that's right.
And I think now I'm gonna try and get this right now. I think we met it at Cardiff show originally.
No, it was Bobby. So years ago, I did the startup, which I think when it was 1 year on.
Yeah, all right. Yes. So because it's been a little while, isn't it? You've been we've been working together for some time now.
Yeah. So I'm originally from Devon, so my family still live there. So the bus is quite nice for me because I stay with them and I can travel up. But yeah, back then I was doing a lot of illustrated products and things. So I had a stand filled with lampshades and cushions and jewellery as well, and a sort of mix of stuff. So
yeah, because your practice has changed quite a lot recently, I think. Yeah, because I was
yes.
I remember from you had so many different ranges in different materials, and now you're really kind of promoting yourself as an ethical jeweler, you know, using recycled material. So that's been quite a conscious change, I'd imagine.
Yeah, definitely. I've been thinking about it for a while, and I sort of in my personal life, I sort of think about that and like to make as many ethical choices as I can. So even before I sort of made the change to becoming an ethical jeweller, I was, as much as possible, I was buying recycled products and packaging, and I was using resin before, so I was using eco resin. But I still felt like I was sort of, it wasn't quite what I wanted to be doing. So I had a baby just over a year ago, and that was kind of a bit of a catalyst for change for me. So I had a bit of time off, maternity leave, and time to have a think and sort of overhaul the website, practice some new techniques and things. And yeah, I launched it all this January actually. So. Yeah.
And how have you found it? How have you found it to shape your business? Has it been received well?
It has actually, yeah. I've been really, it's been really nice. I took the tiniest collection ever up to a trade show in London in January, and actually had really nice feedback. And I've had lots of customer interest, and like the ethical side of it has been well received as well, which is really nice because that's obviously one of the main motivators for me with the change.
Yeah, because I wanted to see whether that had sort of, as well as, you know, making your conscious decision, whether that was also an appeal in itself to your customers, really, that's where you're going.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I know in general there's a sort of move towards that anyway in our sort of society. I think people are starting to think a bit more about mass production in culture and things, and maybe buying more sustainably produced one-off unique pieces. So yeah, I think that's an appeal sort of for customers as well as for what I want to do. So,
well, it's quite interesting, isn't it? Because I always feel like being a purchaser of craftwear is almost like a form of activism, you know, which is something that we've all been doing forever. But it turns out it's almost like I feel like we're making a political statement now, really. It's like it used to be buy nice, buy twice, is buy well and buy once is the way we're looking at it. And there's
so many hashtags on Instagram. There's all shop local, shop support local artists. All those sort of things are trending now, aren't they? So.
It's been quite interesting as well. I think the focus on the more small local independent businesses through lockdown.
Yeah, definitely.
If you've ever been to Bovey Tracy, we're quite a small town, yes. And but surrounded by quite big places like Exeter and Plymouth and things, and people tend to go there for shopping. And Bovey's High Street is quiet, but they've, you know, it's been amazing for the businesses and Bovey, for the fruit and veg and, you know, the local sort of suppliers. Yeah. I'd be interested to see if people will stay interested going forward. You know, that will be the test.
Yeah,
really.
Yeah, definitely.
But you've got lots of different. Are you still working in different ranges? So what sort of stuff? What things influence you at the moment?
So I'm not. I've stopped making my resin work now. So I've sort of been through lots. I'm completely self-taught jeweller. So I've basically learned, and every time I learn a new technique or find something else that interests me, I sort of move along and develop what I'm doing. So at the moment, I'm just working in silver, and I've always used a lot of colour previously in my work, so that's something I would be interested to explore. But I'm thinking about ways of doing that in the most sort of environmentally friendly way, so that if, from a point of view of the environment, if you ever wanted to recycle the jewellery again, you could take it apart, so you could take out that, so maybe coloured clay or something like that, where you can take the clay out and separate them and recycle both parts. And pieces, sort of natural materials and things like that. So that's something I've sort of got in my mind for the future. But at the moment, I'm just sort of building up the silver work, and so I've sort of got a starter collection, but I want to expand on that and try out new ideas and keep building that up a bit to begin with, I think.
Yeah. Okay, I want to move on to Kate Phipps. Hi there, Kate.
Hi.
How are you doing?
Thank you. I'm good, thanks. How are you?
Lovely. Well, thanks for joining me today. Obviously looked at your work. It's absolutely stunning. Gems. Have you always had an interest in cut stones? Has that always been part of your practice?
Yeah, I'm a bit of a magpie. So yeah, as long as I can remember, I've always loved looking at jewellery, and I started making as a hobby when I was a teenager, and then it sort of eventually became a career after a career change. I used to be an IT consultant, so it's a bit more creative than that. But yeah, I really like having colour in my work.
So when was that change? What timescales are we looking at?
So I started my business at the end of 2014. Yeah, I did 8 years being an IT consultant, which was not good for my mental health. So
No.
it was time for a change.
Oh, I can only imagine. I haven't got a clue. I mean, my computer nearly broke this morning, so I was just like ready to throw it. My IT department is throwing it out the window. I think actually that's the way I look at IT. But so are you self-taught? Did you go to some classes? How did you? Because the work's very refined, so there's a lot of technique there.
Thank you. Yeah, so it's mainly part-time courses and sort of one-day courses that I've done. I did some part-time courses at the School of Jewellery, which is really handy for me being close to Birmingham.
Yeah.
And then at the School of Master Jewellers as well. And then I've also worked in a traditional jewellery workshop in the Jewellery Quarter, and also for another contemporary jeweller, just a couple of days a week. So yeah, that's helped.
So how would you describe your jewellery?
I like to use clean lines. So people often say to me, oh, it's very simple, and think that I'm going to be offended by that. But yeah, I quite like the simplicity of simple shapes, clean lines, and sort of inspired by softened geometric forms and stylized natural forms as well.
There's lots of stacking pieces as well. Is that
yeah?
Are they often bought separately? Do people build up collections?
Yeah, so I've had one of the commissions that I've had during lockdown was for a lady who I think has now got 5 stacking rings that she's sort of been adding to over a period of time. So mixing and matching.
Lockdown, that's a good customer.
Yeah. Oh, not 5 during lockdown. She started buying stuff a couple of years ago, and she just keeps adding things to it. So yeah, sometimes people will just buy one and then add to them later on.
So is working to commission something that you do often?
Yeah, I really love working to commission. Being able to make something that is sort of exactly what somebody wants is a real thrill, and sort of I love having conversations with customers and sort of playing with different ideas. So that's one of the things that I've really missed during lockdown, is being able to actually go out and do face-to-face events with people and sort of let them pick up things and play with different ideas. And I like the way that customers come up with ideas that I haven't necessarily thought of.
Yeah, I think that interaction is challenging, isn't it? Or the lack of interaction. Yeah. But at the same time, I think it might be, I've heard a few, as well as Mel mentioning it, about working by meeting on Zoom. Is that something that you thought of doing, or have you tried doing that?
I've not tried doing it yet. I've done it mainly via phone calls and emails. Trying to set up Zoom times, because I'm pretty much looking after my daughter full time at the moment, because she's not gone back to nursery. So it's a bit, yeah. There's challenges, aren't there, really, about how much you can swivel around and be different. Yeah. When we're all used to working in a very particular way. Yeah. Because I was trying to get plan Bs for my business, and it was quite challenging when all you do is run public events. It's like, yeah, big change. So hence why we're talking today. On screen. But well, thanks very much, Kate. I'm going to go on to Katherine Charnock, whose business is Katherine Barber Jewellery, based in North Devon.
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
You all right?
I'm good, thank you. Yeah, you?
Lovely to meet you. Yeah, very well, thank you. I was saying I'm gonna mess this up again, but I think you were doing the startup this year, weren't you?
Yes, correct. Yes.
In Bovey, and that was the first time you were coming into the show. I mean, I've seen your work before.
Yeah, so I've done a few shows around Devon, and I came to your How to Sell event in Bath. So that was.
Did you?
Yes, yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
In November. Yeah, and that was really useful, really helpful.
Yeah, those days are good. There's another one I was trying to think how I could do that online, but I suppose you've got to go. Well, I may have to try, because they've been great. They're great for meeting, and I find a bit that's really useful is all the people that you meet.
Definitely, yeah, and especially as a new business, because my business has just turned 2 years old. So it was really great to sort of see where everyone else was in their business journeys and find out what other people were struggling with and what had worked for them. So it was a really good event to meet people at. Yeah,
I enjoy doing them actually. They're I don't do many, but they are. I always get a lot out of it personally as well, meeting on people and seeing people so enthusiastic about their work. But it was interesting because I looked you up, and it says you did commercial design for many years. So can you tell us a bit more about that? What was that? Yeah, what were you doing and what changed?
Yeah, so I did a jewellery degree. It was a 3-dimensional studies degree, and I kind of had a vision that I'd end up wearing a smock and working in this big warehouse, and went straight into a commercial design job, which was effectively a 9-to-5 office job. So it was technical hand drawing. All of the pieces were made in Thailand and China. And I loved the design aspect of it. The first job I had, we had really good relationships with the factories. The second job was as a supply to the high street. So again, the design side of it was great, loads of scope to run free, you know, didn't matter about the sizes, I could use fabric, loads of different materials, but the amount we were producing didn't sit well with me. It was stack it high, sell it cheap. We do factory visits, and a lot of the factories weren't the best places to work, let's just say. And it just, yeah, it really showed me a different side to it. I'd been so about the creative aspect of it and the designing and the materials. And like I said, loved the relationships over the designs with the factories, getting them to make something. But actually the reality of it, it didn't sit well with me. It wasn't what I wanted to do. And the product was being shipped off around the world and it would arrive broken. And it just, yeah, it was really low cost, low quality. And it was all about selling. So just sell as much as you possibly can. And I fell out of love with it, really. And I think, actually, I don't want to do this anymore. So then I sort of sought out a sort of a bit of a career change and went back to the making side of it. So worked for a couple of UK-based small companies making the jewellery, and then decided it was time to make my own stuff, where I had complete control over the whole process.
It sounds like when I call you, you did a Jerry Maguire. Really.
Well, maybe, yeah.
Yeah, you chucked it all to do it right.
Yeah, it was a bit like that, I suppose, walking away from a salary, and the jobs were great. They had good bits and I got to travel and things, but it just, yeah, there was only so long I could do that for before really sitting down and thinking about what the impact of that was. So yeah, it's been a journey.
It's been very, you know, to be honest, we've all been thinking about that, where Sally's already talked, she's completely changed her business really in the last few years to reflect her own personal choices. And I think that we are all changing quietly, whether it's the food we eat, you know, like my bike's, you know, getting the bicycle out, you know, the usual things that we all try and do. And especially during this time, you know. But tell us a bit about the work that you're doing now.
So, yeah, I have a workshop in my garden in Devon, which was always my dream at university. So it's funny how you come back to these things. And I just, when I'm in there, the day just goes so quickly. I'm sort of focused on it. I have the radio on in the background, and I love that reconnection back to the pieces. So I always love the design, and I still spend a lot of time on the design work. So everything is drawn out. I'm not a jeweler that goes to the bench and just creates. I have the design beforehand. But to be able to use my hands to make stuff instead of it being produced far away, I feel a real connection back to that, and a real pride as well when I can say I made it. There's nothing like that really. So yeah, it's been interesting during lockdown. I'm very thankful the workshop's in the garden, because it means I can carry on. And I've sort of found a bit of a renewed enthusiasm for the business, I think, seeing what's going on globally and in my community. And launched a couple of charity pieces that are not for profit, and they've been really well supported, and that's just been really heartening to see that people, they want to buy local, and they also want that money to go back and do some good in the community. And yeah, it's given me a new sense of enthusiasm, I think, for all, which has been really good, because it could have gone either way.
Well, Mel, actually, maybe I will just quickly talk to Mel about, you did an incredible fundraiser, didn't you, for Refuge. Was that for Refuge? Yeah,
for Refuge, yeah. I mean, I've been on my own, I live on my own, so I just spent, you know, the whole of this on my own. But then I woke up one morning feeling incredibly lucky that I was, you know, on my own and not in a dangerous situation. And I felt like I've got so many contacts in the jewellery and just handmade industry. Just sent a few emails out, and everyone was in. So yeah, suddenly this thing sprung up, and we raised £7,000 for Refuge. So it felt really, yeah, like doing something useful.
Yeah, there's been a lot of incredible campaigns going on, as well as the Artist Support Pledge. Has anybody been using that as a way to sell their work?
Yeah.
So who's put the hand up? Who wants to say speak? I'll let Rebecca have a chat about that. Have you done that then, Rebecca?
Yeah, it's been really Actually, I really enjoyed it as a maker and also as a observer and a customer, looking at all the beautiful things. So it's been really good, and I think it's been really nice with like how many people have gotten involved in it, and yeah, it's been great.
You had a stunning pair of earrings on there. I must admit, I was very tempted. Are you making some more? Are you wearing them? Is those the ones you're wearing?
Yeah, so these ones are the ones that I had on the Artist Support Pledge were the oxidized versions of these. So they had a gradient of oxidized black coming up them. So yeah, so they sold actually, which was lovely. And I'm going to be making some more of them for the festival.
Yeah, well, I've got definite buying signals from this person anyway, so that's good. But Katherine, I wondered how do you sell your work in, I was going to say normal circumstances, but do you have a range of ways that you sell your work?
Yeah, I think because the business is new, I've been trying to do lots and lots of events to try and get out there. So events, public events normally were my main kind of source of income. So I've had to think a bit more about how to get it out there and get it seen. And during lockdown, I've been doing quite a lot of Instagram videos to actually talk through the pieces. Yeah. Because that's the thing at a market, someone can pick it up and touch it. So I found that's been really good actually, to sort of put my face out there, which I absolutely did not want to do before. And I've kind of had to.
Did you do Crux? Did you do Crux? Did I see your work there? Where was the shows in Devon that you did? Just
Native Makers. So I've done that.
Oh yeah.
Which I think I remember seeing there.
I think I talked to your mum.
Yes, you did. You did. Yeah. I was off. There was a photographer, and he was taking pictures of everyone. And yeah, you had a chat with my mum.
Yeah. I go to a lot of craft fairs. But at Christmas in Devon, it's amazing the amount of really good events, isn't it? It's like they're not too big and they're really, really great. You know,
and we've got loads of amazing makers. So yeah, it's a really.
But do you sell online still? Is that something that you do?
Yes, yeah. So my main source is my website. Yeah, that's the main place where people can buy it from. So I haven't got any stockists yet. That's next on the list. So.
Yeah, that's something to build up on. But I think the good thing about online and the way and doing shows is that you sell direct and it's all great. Shops are really good as well. You can build up really great relationships with some really good places, and I think it's important because I think Mel, you've probably worked with lots of retailers over the years.
Yeah, mainly I did sell all my work through retailers. So when all this kind of happened, it was really scary, and I didn't sell. I had a website, but I didn't really sell much through it. So yeah, suddenly my outlets were all just gone overnight. So I've really tried to use Instagram a bit more, try and put myself out there a bit more, and it's a steep learning curve really, but yeah.
Well, engagement on Instagram is absolutely amazing at the moment. I mean, it's everyone is just, I'm absolutely glued to it most of the time. It's a bit of a problem. But I wanted to ask Rebecca, have you felt that your practice has developed through lockdown? Has anything changed or working differently?
Yeah, so I had to move my studio home. Which I'm grateful that I was able to set up a sort of little home studio instead. And actually it's been kind of useful in a way, because I think before this I was just kept on going full steam ahead and wasn't really giving myself much breathing space. And this has kind of forced me to slow down and kind of take stock of what I'm doing. And also I think I might have maybe changed my balance a bit more, and instead of just making constantly, it's been spending more time on Instagram and kind of been spending more time trying to kind of market my work a little bit. And I think that's kind of having benefits. So I'm going to have to try and continue that going forward.
Yeah, I think there are benefits of honing the collection. I think really, I think that helps, because there's in certain industries, a business would only release a couple of collections a year. If it was a more, I know it's changed, but I think even now fashion houses are saying, we're not going to do this anymore. We're not going to do, and it's not even, because it wasn't just autumn and winter and spring and summer. There was collections all the way through the year. So I think a lot of bigger companies are going, this isn't sustainable, And I don't know about you, but I started off in January and I was like, my God, the year's already going like so fast. So it was a bit of a strange one, isn't it, when it all came crashing down and we all had to stop. So I'm glad it's been giving you the opportunity to have a little think.
Yeah.
You know. Angelina, what about you? How have you found it, the lockdown period for you?
Very much like everybody else. I was mainly just doing the fairs, and got a lot out of that kind of interaction, that dialogue with customers. So and with the stockists. So when we went into lockdown, it just all stopped, and I was like, oh my days. So what am I going to do now? I struggled previously because of the way in which my pieces work, and there is an action to it. To take one photo doesn't really explain what it does. So I've been working, so I might have been quite quiet on social media, because I've been working on a series of short films and GIFs in which that I can actually show the action or how it works. So I'm creating almost like a database which will go on my website, and then I'll be able to use them on social media. But yeah, I think like everybody else, we've had to kind of rethink about how we interact with people. And I'm going to be looking then, obviously vamping the website and things like that. But in a way, it's an opportunity. If we come out of this and we do the craft fairs again, and actually we've got a good setup online, then in a way that's maybe the silver lining. That's the way I'm trying to see it anyway. So having more time to do that side, and then when we're all back out again, then can potentially do both. That's the plan anyway.
Yeah. Let's hope they all come back. I'd be quite happy if that happens.
It would be good, wouldn't it? Yeah.
Melanie, what about yourself? Obviously, you're saying you had a few, it's a bit of a shock to the system, isn't it? But have you found it that you've sort of adapted through time?
Yeah, I think so. And I think the Artist Support Pledge has helped, and being able to, I've used it to perhaps make something that's not in my normal range, that's perhaps something that, so that I can have a play and try. And so I did find that my creativity, although I had all the time in the world, and I wasn't creative at all. I wasn't finding that anything was coming. I was maybe putting too much pressure on myself to create something new. So just using that as a way to create perhaps one little thing that was different. I just found it then kind of started to snowball, and then now I have got more new ideas to go forward. So
well, I think everyone reacted quite differently to everything happening. I think I initially was quite buoyant about everything for about a month, and then as the news got worse, I then fell to pieces a bit for about 2 weeks. I was very, very upset. And then, whereas I know people who became upset straight away, and then when I was in my upset bit, they were fine with it. So I was like, oh, that's interesting. And then we're all, a lot of people had this conversation about week 5 of going, oh, it's gone a bit serious, hasn't it? Oh. So I think everyone reacts to the situation, but we're all sort of trying to find an equilibrium really, and to see, how you can manage, things going forward. But Sally, how about yourself? How have you found lockdown for you as a person in the family?
I think similarly to what was it Kate saying, I've got a 1-year-old, so and my husband works full time. He's been working from home, so childcare has been fully onto me, where before lockdown she just sort of got into going to a childminder 3 times a week. So I just sort of readjusted from maternity leave and was just getting back into doing work, and then lockdown happens and I'm suddenly trying to fit hours in here and there. So I sometimes get an hour in the morning and maybe a couple of hours in the evening to do a bit of work. But yeah, it's kind of been a case of trying to squeeze things in around her really. But it did give me a chance I got loads of product photography done, got everything onto my website and things like that. And one thing I've found has been really nice actually is the community online, like everyone's been saying, just how much everyone is supporting each other. And I've done a very local, much smaller, very local Bristol online market a few weeks ago. It was just a case of posting one Instagram story basically. Yeah. But it was amazing the support we all got and how many people were sharing it and were commenting, and it's just been really, and with the Artist Support Pledge, like you said, it's been so lovely how everyone's kind of pulled together and really trying to make the most out of what is or could have been a not particularly lovely situation. So it's nice to sort of be able to pull some of the positives out of it as well, I think.
I'm not sure I've done with that Instagram, actually. It's been quite
Yeah.
lots of lovely compliments and comments. It's a nice place. It's a nice place to be, isn't it? Really.
It is, yeah. It's lovely. It's lovely, and it's. I guess. I mean, I obviously live with my husband and daughter, and we've got a dog, so it still feels busy-ish. But I guess, especially if you're living by yourself, having that community is I imagine must be really important as well.
Kate, how have you found things during lockdown? Have you managed to work at all, or is it mostly developing, looking after the family? You there, Kate?
Was her screen frozen, maybe?
Oh, yeah, we're all right now. I wondered what happened then. Are you still there? Is everyone there?
I'm there.
Yeah, so it's just Kate. There she is. Oh.
Hello.
Hello. Are you there? I thought I've upset you.
No, my screen's frozen with everybody else's face, but mine's still moving, so I don't know what's going on.
No, you're all right now. You're back in the room. You're back in the room.
Good.
I just asked, really about how have you been managing through the lockdown as a person.
But Sally, it's a very big juggling act between looking at.
Well, I think we've lost your you're freezing for a minute, so I'm gonna move on to Katherine. We'll come back to you in a minute, okay? So, Katherine, yourself, you've been quite busy during lockdown, by the sounds of things.
Yeah, I think obviously aside from the initial shock of it all, just not looking too far ahead. So once all the events started to be cancelled, it was kind of like, okay, you've got to focus on what's in front of you in the next few days. And my husband, he normally is away quite a lot with work, and he's been home, so that's actually been really nice for us to have that time together and to have a bit more of a structured working day. So there's a lot more tea breaks now he's here, but it's been really nice. It feels easy. Obviously, normally working from home, I'm on my own, so it actually feels quite nice that he's been here. And I think I've done better. Like I know some of, like Rebecca, you said, like removing some of the sort of the chasing everything around, doing all the events. So the fact they've been removed, it means you can focus on what's in front of you, which has actually been quite good for me, I think.
Yeah, no, I think there's been a big adjustment, and it'd be quite interesting to see what happens with the digital festival. I mean, it's a big one. There's a lot of people involved, but I think what the interesting thing about it is that, unlike the show, you're sort of waiting. You can go out and meet the people by using hashtags and just creating content. I think there's a lot of, you need to do a little bit of work yourself over the weekend, is how I describe it. So use the hashtags and obviously this film, I'm hoping, will generate interest to you personally as well, and we'll obviously make mentions of you in dispatches about your involvement, and the more that you get involved, the better, especially if you've got good content on Instagram and a good following. But we're going to be using Facebook as well, and we're sending out newsletters to our newsletter to our subscribers. So make sure you tell your customers as well. If you don't know if that's the way, we have different ways of mechanisms that we communicate with people. There's some is social and some are actual real people who actually been to the festival, and those are the people that we really want to come and join us online. I think Kate is back in the room now. Are you there, Kate?
Oh yes, I could hear you the whole time. I just don't know what's going on.
There we are. You're all right now. You're fine. No, we were just doing a roundup really to see how you say you've got a 4-year-old, is that right?
2-year-old.
2-year-old. So how have you found managing family life and sort of still keeping a business going?
Quite a juggle. I'm glad that she still naps. My husband's been really supportive and has been taking over a couple of points during the day so that I can try and get some work done, and then sort of working in the evenings. But yeah, it's quite want to keep a 2-year-old entertained and work as well. Yeah, really quite challenging, I can imagine. But I would just want to thank you all for joining me today. It's been an absolute pleasure. So I hope you all have a great rest of the week, and look forward to seeing you again at the Digital Craft Festival from the 26th to the 28th of June. So thanks for joining me today, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.